Hey everybody, I'm Felipe Caicedo.
And I'm Michael McIntyre.
And this is Sports Talk with Mike and Felipe.
As you know, we changed our name from the FM show to Sports Talk with Mike and Felipe. Thanks to our voters on Facebook for doing so.
Alright, right out of the gate, we're going to start with last week's wildcard games. Our first game is going to be the Seattle Seahawks versus the Washington Redskins. The Redskins started out winning the game in the first half 14-0, but the Seattle defense held them just to 14 points and 24 unanswered for Seattle.
I mean, you talk about a terrible start, awful start for the Seahawks. In the first quarter they only went 3 yards, and it was very interesting to see Pete Carroll, cheer on his offense, cheer them on. And in the second quarter, they just, started piling on the offense against Washington's defense, and by halftime they were down 13-14. So it was a fantastic game to see, and eventually, of course, Seattle won the game 24-14. Of course, as Felipe will tell you, the turf wasn't a good story to hear.
No, RG3 ended up tearing his ACL and LCL. He had surgery last Wednesday. Possible 6 to 8 months out, but reports saying, he could possibly miss all of next year, which is a big hit to the Redskins as he's their star quarterback. Also for the Seahawks, Chris Clemens tore his ACL. He's going to be out for the season. I mean, he led the team with sacks with 11.5. That's also a big hit for the Seattle defense.
Well, Felipe, you and I were talking about on Wednesday that Chris Clemens, brings a style to the defense that many have not seen. And now that Bruce Irvin has to take his place, we're going to have to see what happens. He's going to bring a fast-paced style. He usually comes in on third down situations. He's going to start coming as a starter. We'll have to see what Pete Carroll does and what his mindset will change.
So this next game that we're going to talk about was Green Bay and Minnesota. As you saw in my last week's picks, I picked Minnesota over Green Bay. This was not the case. Green Bay came over with the win, 24-10. They held Adrian Peterson to only 99 yards, which was probably crucial for them to win that game, and they did. Also, a game day decision. Christian Ponder, starting quarterback for Minnesota, did not play due to arm injury. Joe Webb started for the first time this season, which was a crucial blow to the Minnesota offense. Now moving on to the AFC wildcard games. First game was Indianapolis and Baltimore. Baltimore coming in, with a really strong defense. Ray Lewis came back, which is key for the Ravens. Indianapolis was rookie quarterback Andrew Luck. Indianapolis was not so lucky this time. They lost 24-9. And everybody kind of expected Baltimore to beat Indianapolis in this game.
I think it was a test to see if Baltimore's offense that has been weak over the past couple of weeks against an Indianapolis offense led by Andrew Luck. And we learned that Andrew Luck was just not as good for this Ravens defense as we expected. Give credit to the Ravens defense. Ed Reed and Ray Lewis back together on the same field. It's like Christmas. I was really impressed with the Ravens picking up that crucial win going to Denver next week.
Yes. And now, so the next game that happened in the NFC was Cincinnati and Houston. Houston really shaky during that game. They almost lost it, but the Houston defense came through in the end. The score was 19-13. Again, Houston almost lost that game to Cincinnati.
I had Cincinnati on top, but it just shows you that anything goes in this league.
Now moving on to this upcoming week's NFL playoff games, we're going to break down one game especially, and that is the Seattle Seahawks visiting the Atlanta Falcons. Michael, what are your 3 keys to this game?
It's going to be interesting. Marshawn Lynch running against the Atlanta defense. Atlanta defense allows 123.9 rushing yards per game. Marshawn's been on fire. We're going to have to see what happens with him, especially also with Robert Turbin and even Russell Wilson. That's my second key. Russell Wilson in pressure situations. When you watch a Seahawks game, you watch Russell Wilson escaping jail, basically. He will find ways to get your first down, either rushing, passing, or optioning to Marshawn Lynch. We're going to have to see if Russell can keep this going throughout the Atlanta game. Next is Tony Gonzalez, Roddy White, and Julio Jones for Atlanta. Atlanta is more talented on offense with all those weapons. Matt Ryan has not won a playoff game, ever. He needs to throw to those three people if he wants to win the game. If they have more rushing yards by the fourth quarter, and then Atlanta will have the score and will win the game. Felipe, what do you think the score is going to look like?
I think the Seahawks they're gonna keep it close in the first quarter, but they're gonna pull it away at the end because that defense, that secondary for the Seahawks, is just too good.
Mm-hmm.
And also, the Atlanta Falcons, they gave up 242.4 passing yards, and I think Russell Wilson's just gonna have a field day on Sunday morning. So I'm gonna pick 35-24 Seahawks in that game.
What do you think about Green Bay, San Francisco?
Green Bay, San Francisco. Now that's going to be a game that everyone's going to want to watch. That is probably going to be the closest game of all of these games that are coming up.
Okay.
Green Bay is going to lose to San Francisco in a really close one, 21-19.
What do you think about Houston and New England, as well as Baltimore and Denver?
First of all, I'll start with Baltimore and Denver. Baltimore, a really strong defense. Denver, incredibly good offense with Eric Decker, Sean Moreno, and also Peyton Manning.
Of course.
And so I think I'm going to pick Denver in this one, 28-19. Right. Baltimore's going to keep it close to the defense, but Denver, that offense is just too good for most of the NFL. Now moving on to Houston and New England, they met previously this year. New England manhandled them. Yeah. Again, I think that's going to be the case this time. Probably the game not to watch because it's going to be ugly. 42-17, I'm picking New England over Houston.
Well, thank you, Felipe, for those wonderful picks.
So now, again, we've looked at my picks for this upcoming week's NFL playoffs. Now we're going to take a look at Big Money Mike's picks. Michael, Seahawks, Falcons. What's your score on that one?
Well, I was in 6th period Litz today, and he had us right up the pick on the board. And 3/4 of it was the Seahawks. And I'm, just saying, the Seahawks are going to get it done in Atlanta. I have looked at this team, and I've watched every single game. And you know what I see? I see improvement. Russell Wilson has improved so much over these playoffs and over the regular season. Marshawn Lynch is going to be the key in this game. Watch the defense against Atlanta's talented offense. That will be the key for the Seattle Seahawks to win the game.
And they've also outscored their opponents in the last 6 games, 217-74. That's a big number to watch.
Exactly.
For.
I have them 28-23.
Now, what about the second NFC game, Green Bay, San Francisco?
You talked about San Francisco and Colin Kaepernick. I'm going to talk about Aaron Rodgers. Aaron Rodgers is going to get it done, 21-17 Green Bay. I think Green Bay is going to get this done because of what they have. They have Greg Jennings. They have Aaron Rodgers. They have this great arsenal of players. B.J. Raji, one of my favorites. I think Rodgers will throw 3 touchdowns in his win, and he'll get it done in Candlestick Park.
All right, that's an interesting pick, Michael. Now, AFC, Houston Patriots?
I'm going to have to go with the Patriots, 35-24. Houston is improving, and they have dug themselves a hole. They're trying to get it out. I've seen New England picks that are just a massacre against Houston, just like in the regular season. Houston will keep it close. I think Houston will start coming back late in the game, but Tom Brady will throw touchdowns. Expect Aaron Hernandez to catch at least 2 touchdowns.
And so now, Michael, the last AFC game, which is Baltimore at Sports Authority at Mile High in Denver. Who do you think, what is your score on this one?
Well, Peyton Manning, just such a great player. We're going to see him in the AFC Championship because Denver's going to win 24-13. Ray Lewis, bittersweet homecoming back to Baltimore. We'll see what happens, but I think Baltimore's defense will be too weak for this strong Denver offense.
All right, so now we're going to turn to a question that was asked on our Facebook page. This comes from Mackenzie Minnis from Bellevue, Washington. The question is, what do you think about the rumor that Mike Holmgren will be returning to the NFL as a head coach? And do you think he will return, and what team will that be, Michael?
Well, Mackenzie, let me just say, he is one of the perfect candidates that is out there to coach in the NFL. With the Green Bay Packers and the Seattle Seahawks just training the great quarterbacks of the day, Brett Favre, and I am to say Matt Hasselbeck a little bit. but just has done an impressive job, kept up an impressive resume, and as president of the Browns, he has experience in the front office. And as with a team, it's interesting to note that the teams that we have that have no coaches right now are not asked him, and it looks like at the moment Mike is not going to be in the NFL as a coach next year. He could be a front office guy, just depends. But as we know it right now, it doesn't look like a team wants him, which I find very disappointing to say the least. But with Holmgren's experience, I think he would be a great coach for any team.
Personally, I think he would fit out of the teams without coaches. I think he personally would fit best with the Philadelphia Eagles. Mm-hmm. They have so much talent that he could work with, young talent, and with the speed that they have, Michael Vick, McCoy, Deshaun Jackson, and that great young defense that they have that still hasn't really figured it out. But I think Holmgren will fit best in Philadelphia.
And I should say, it is still early for teams to, there's still plenty of time for teams to pick up a coach. And Felipe brings up a good point. Philadelphia too would be a good fit for Mike Holmgren.
All right, so now moving away a little bit from the NFL, we're going to head into college football just for a little bit. We just had the big game, the BCS Bowl, number 2 Alabama, number 1 Notre Dame down in Miami. A really lopsided game, 42-14.
Well, let me tell you, Felipe, I think just Notre Dame just missed their flight. They didn't show up, and it was disappointing to see. But give credit to Notre Dame for such a great season. But that brings us into the question, is Alabama a dynasty? And I've been asking people on Facebook about this. It's been a mixed reaction, but overall, after winning 3 championships under Nick Saban, Pasadena, they beat Texas. They went to New Orleans, beat LSU, and now in Miami they beat Notre Dame. It looks like that Alabama is building a dynasty. You can't deny it. The SEC is the SEC and Alabama. Alabama is becoming its own level in college football.
Totally different from everybody else. They're just so good, so athletic, so fast, everything. I mean, there's no team in college football that can beat Alabama.
Exactly. Now turning to a great new development in the National Basketball Association. We have heard, ladies and gentlemen, as you might have, that the Sacramento Kings, owners, the Maloof family, are planning to move the team, first of all, sell it to Seattle investor Chris Hansen and his group, who would move it to Seattle. What do you think about this, Felipe?
I think this is awesome for Seattle because so many of their fans have fought for this for years and years and years, and they finally got it. They finally got what they wanted. They finally got what they're looking for. It was just a matter of time. Who was going to pay for it? It was just money. Money was the big thing.
Exactly.
And, the cool thing about this is they could start up a new season for the Sonics as soon as next year, the 2013-2014 NBA season.
I'll give credit to Chris Hansen. All the other rich people in our area are like, I don't really want to go into this, yeah. But Chris Hansen took the initiative, took the right steps, and went and negotiated for this team. Of course, the deal is not done, but Felipe, it looks like that in just a matter of days, we could have the NBA back in Seattle. Of course, it'll be a matter of years before a game starts playing, but you get the idea.
And I think the big thing is there going to be a new arena? Because that was the big seller for any NBA team or even hockey team, is can they build a new arena? Because right now, all they have is that Key Arena.
Well, simply put, if they can get an NHL team, then Chris Hansen's got his arena. Well, Felipe, as we turn to the NBA, who are your biggest surprises this year?
There have been some pretty big surprises out there, Michael. We're going to start over in the East Coast with the 2 New York teams, the Knicks and the Brooklyn Nets. The Nets are 20-15, and the Knicks are 23-12, both number 1 and 2 spots in the Atlantic Division in the Eastern Conference. They've both played well throughout the year, and I think they're going to continue to play well. The next one are the 2, we're going to come to the West Coast, LA teams, Clippers and Lakers. Clippers are 28-8.
Wow.
And the Lakers are 15-20.
Who would ever think of the Clippers with that perfect record? My goodness, just amazing.
And the Lakers just horrendous, awful. After making those many acquisitions in Dwight Howard and Steve Nash, and they already have Kobe Bryant. They're just doing extremely awful.
And the Howard out with that elbow injury, it's just amazing to see what is happening in LA right now with the NBA.
And I mean, Lakers not making playoffs, like.
Well, in the Central Division where my Chicago Bulls are, there's another team that's making some news. Who is that?
The Indiana Pacers.
Wow.
They're 22-14, and they're leading that Central Division in the Eastern Conference. I mean, not many people would have expected that this year. They've had a young group come in last year, and they lost to Miami Heat in the playoffs, but they came strong again this year. They're ready to play, and they're doing work out there in Indiana.
Mm-hmm.
The next one, we're going to move to the Miami Heat again, down in South Beach. They've got LeBron, Bosh, Dwayne Wade, with acquisitions of Ray Allen and Rashard Lewis.
Yeah.
And they're 23-11, leading that Southeast Division.
Mm-hmm.
Next, we have Golden State. Second in the Pacific, but Golden State. Second in the Pacific again.
Who would have expected that? Really? What about Dallas?
Now, Dallas, they were in the finals, a couple years ago.
Yeah.
They have Dirk Nowitzki as their all-time leader. 14-23, falling off the charts like the Lakers. They're fourth in the Southeast.
Well, I'll tell you, I have friends, from Dallas, and telling them that the Cowboys and the Mavericks and the stars of the NHL, they just are not good. Dallas needs better sports teams, ladies and gentlemen. And as we conclude the show, we'd like to thank you for writing all the suggestions and improvements on our Facebook and Twitter pages, and we also like to thank you for voting on our name. As we continue to make the show with new improvements, we will have the show up and running. We will even have a theme song, montage, and maybe even more improvements as we continue to receive your feedback.
Yeah, and continue to like us on Facebook and follow us. We will leave the links below, and thanks for watching.
As always, I'm Michael McIntyre.
I'm Felipe Casado.
And this has been Sports Talk with Mike and Felipe.